After a busy day, do you ever find yourself wondering where all of your time went? Have you ever felt like 80% of your day was spent doing mindless and meaningless tasks that really don't matter and that probably don't even need to be done? Well, on today's show, best-selling author Jeff Bethke shares about how to reclaim your life in an overworked, overspent, and overconnected world.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, 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 and yes. Thrive Nation, on today's show, we have a repeat guest, the man with the plan who is doing the interview today from Hawaii. A big aloha out to you, Mr. Jefferson Bethke. Welcome back onto the Thrive Time Show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Okay, real quick, the listeners out there who may have missed the first interview with you, who are all automatically jealous, therefore maybe quasi-resentful of the fact that you now live in Hawaii, tell us about what inspired you to move out to that great location.
Yeah, it's not as random as it sounds. My wife actually took a job out here after college, and that was kind of the connecting point, fell in love with it. But we're both from Washington State, Seattle people through and through. And so when we started having kids, we kind of wanted to think about where best to raise a family, and Hawaii was where we chose. Now,
you are an accomplished author, speaker. I know that millions of people out there know who you are, but for those who don't know about you, could you share with everybody a little bit about your journey from the beginning to here and why you, because I think people need to know a little bit about your background before we get into your new book.
Yeah, for sure. So the main, I would say the kind of the connecting dots that helps most people is about 7, maybe 8 years ago now, I wrote a poem and made a video called Why I Hate Religion But Love Jesus that went kind of crazy viral. No plan for it to, wasn't thinking it was going to, it was just for kind of my friends and for fun. And then that kind of turned my life upside down where I always care about talking about Jesus or spiritual things and kind of people's spiritual journeys. And that was the kind of catalyst then of when this happened. It allowed me to kind of step into that in a bigger way. And so, yeah, for the last 6 or 7, 8 years now, because of that video, I've just kind of create videos, have a YouTube channel, write books, do podcasts, kind of anything that kind of comes out on the internet or other places.
And so you are a guy that I would say that you work hard, but yet you've written a new book called To Hell with the Hustle, Reclaiming Your Life in an Overworked, Overspent, and Overconnected World. Talk to us about what first inspired you to write this book.
Yeah, I think the book is kind of really born out of my own personal journey. I think because of some of the things I just said, me and my wife were kind of slung into sometimes even more speedier version of work than most people do, which would be like internet-based work and then kind of inundated with all these opportunities and things. And I think even after, which are all good things, but I think even after going down that path, I started to notice like, oh man, this isn't kind of creating us or forming us into the people we want to be. What's the problem there? Why is this not working? And when the more I started to dig around and think about it, I really realized there is kind of this cultural ethos of hustle and hurry that we usually prop up as a virtue is actually one of the things that's really detrimental to our mental health, to our actual good, deep work, to our families, to our marriages. And so, yeah, the book is kind of this manifesto of me kind of talking about the process in the beginning and then also like, man, what kind of people do we want to be and then how do we get there because hustle isn't it?
I think a lot of people are unable to set boundaries. And I'll just pick on myself for a second, but one of my brands that I own is called Elephant in the Room. It's a men's grooming lounge, and we have 5 stores in three that we own ourselves and 2 franchises. And it seems like, Jeff, with 4,000, 5,000 members, usually one guy gets upset about every 100 haircuts. Like the 1% ratio. And when they complain, they want to be responded to. And I've just had to learn to set boundaries where, hey, I'm just going to have to turn the phone off during set hours. For the entrepreneurs out there that operate with that sense of urgency, what advice would you give them for maybe, or principles would you give them to anchor their lives and to set these boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the main reasons is we have to realize that it actually is like hurting us, like phone connectivity, emails, the pings, the vibrations, the apps. They're actually kind of continually, I think, kind of just cutting off our attention span lower and lower, our ability to focus. And these are and so what it's doing is it's cutting off our ability to do any type of deep meaningful work, because a lot of us are just kind of putting out fires or responding, and not kind of intentionally crafting the life we want. And so it's hard too, because we don't have any more hours in a day than someone 200 years ago did. But what we do have is we have a lot more people being able to reach us in those 24 hours. So like we don't get to make more time. So the only other answer to that then is that we have to be able to say no more than people did 200 years ago if we're even going to have any semblance of kind of sanity. And so, yeah, I think being able to actually understand your no, first you have to understand your why. And then once you understand your why, then you really have to craft a really ruthless no, gently and compassionately, but so that you can actually then protect the things that are most important. Because what happens is the urgent is not always the important. And so then what will happen is we'll kind of start sacrificing our marriage, our family, our kids, sometimes the most meaningful work we should be doing, on the altar of kind of these things that are more just urgent.
Now, you just said something that's a pretty powerful thing. You said the urgent is not always the most important. Could you give an example from your life of where something may seem urgent to somebody on the outside, but it's not necessarily important as it relates to your why or your family's goals?
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure I can think of one on the fly right here in the minute, but yeah, I mean, I think there's like emails is one. I feel like it's very easy for when someone needs something, just even some, and I work in internet work, some design file or some link or some answer that realistically, like, probably if maybe like let's say you go off the grid for 2 weeks on accident or you're on vacation or whatever, like they probably could survive without. But there's something about our tones and knowing that we can reach people faster that then ups our sense of urgency when we're writing people. And so I think that's a really big one. And I think email and phone is honestly, it's created to feel urgent. It's literally like someone is in a laboratory basically, right? Kind of thinking, the engineers are thinking, how can we make this feel urgent? Because if we can make it feel urgent, then it'll feel important in a pseudo way. And then they'll look at it, swipe, pick up, and then they make billions of more dollars. So you really have to understand kind of the rat race we're in and the hamster wheel we're kind of running in, and then you can kind of then opt out of that.
Now, I'm gonna tell you, Jeff, a little confession from about I'd say about 7 or 8 years ago, before I figured this out. My wife and I used to travel around doing a lot of speaking events, and I remember after one of the events, my wife got up to use the restroom, and so I did the unthinkable, Jeff. I picked up my phone and I checked my messages. So she comes back from, going to the restroom, whatever, and I am now mentally not present, but I was physically present. You know what I'm saying? And I remember that look she gave me, that death look that said, if you do that again, I'm going to slap you around kind of thing. So I put the phone down. I hit the airplane mode. We had a great dinner. And then that night, we'll just say we went to the hotel, and it was bow chicka wow wow time, Jeff. So my wife, she says, I'm going to go, do the things that women do sometimes. And she's doing those things. And then I get another message that, again, mentally throws off my game. You know what I'm saying, Jeff? And then at that point, we had the talk. And she's like, you've got to turn off the phone. You can't constantly be reachable. I realize we just had a conference, but we're on a hot date right now, and you've been interrupted the entire time. But after a conference, these thousands of attendees all wanted to reach out to me via email or leave reviews. And even though they weren't texting me directly, I'm seeing the reviews coming in. I'm seeing feedback. Do you know what I'm saying, man? I mean, where do you draw the line?
Yeah, well, I think it's true. I mean, it's a fallacy and a lie that we think we can kind of go in and out seamlessly of like our attention to like the phone or the person in front of us and stuff like that. Realistically, like you're only able to give kind of a certain thing your focus, one thing, right? Multitasking is kind of a fallacy and a lie. And I think Cal Newport and some others have actually pointed to that with data and science. Where realistically it's actually just bad work, and it takes a lot of time for you to kind of rebuild up focus and get in the flow every time you transfer. And I think that's true even with relationships. Like that, the metaphor stands true from not just like actual work you should be doing, but then like, yeah, your phone and then a relationship right in front of you. You can only be present in one of those, and there's a lag time when the transfer between those two that then becomes dead time of you trying to refocus, that you're actually trained from the phone to be more micro-segmented and more fragmented in that moment, which then hurts relationships. So I think, yeah, we just have to understand and pick. We have to be like, hey, if I'm here, I'm here. And I'm because when you're on your phone, you are somewhere else, and that's what we think because it's a device in our hands that it's just like we're right here. No, if there's people on that screen and you're interacting with people, that means you're with them wherever they are in the world. You're talking to them, you're having a conversation with them, you're connecting with them, and that's why I'm not demonizing social media on the phones. They're awesome, right? Like I can connect with people, I can email people, it's really cool, but that means you're not then with the person in front of you. So we have a ton of boundaries. We're like, yeah, our phone doesn't come out for date nights. I leave it in the car.
Really?
Even just the other day when we went to church, I leave it at home. Like I think it's like I'm almost trying to see how much I can not have it around me. I think it's actually kind of ridiculous that we all think it has to be in our pocket all the time. And there was a time very recently where a phone used to be attached to a wall and you couldn't put it in your pocket. And so I think we obviously have seen and can show that you could probably get by without it.
Well, I'm not going to try to paint you into a corner with asking you specific people that live by these rules, but Paul Graham is one of my favorite entrepreneurs out there. He's the guy behind Airbnb and Dropbox and Reddit. And Paul is also the guy who invented the Via Web, which is the modern internet shopping cart that he sold to Yahoo back in the day. And Paul talks specifically about how he does not keep a phone on him. And I have found this, Jeff, as I've interviewed more and more billionaires with a B and millionaires with an M, it seems as though the more successful people are, the more intentional they are with where they spend their time, and the less often their phone is on, which seems kind of counterintuitive. You know what I mean? When you're interviewing Wolfgang Puck or John Maxwell, you would assume that these guys must be, these guys must be on the phone all the time, Jeff, working it. Twitter, working it, baby. LinkedIn, working it. Facebook, just email, But no, they have their push notifications turned off. They've got their phone away from them. And when we're doing the interview, they're very present. And when they're wherever they are present, they're always mentally and physically present. Where's the biggest struggle that people have, you think, when they're going to listen to this message and you say, no phone on date nights, leave the phone at home when you're at church? Where do you predict the biggest pushback to be? Or maybe where has been your biggest struggle with this?
I think first of all, it's like an incremental practice. So you have to learn and kind of get better at it because the phone has psychologically and physiologically kind of been wired into us. So then it has to physiologically be wired out of us. It's not something you can tend to do overnight. So it's a practice where you learn the discipline. But I think, most people usually tend to get really kind of push back pretty hard on like, well, what about an emergency or what about X? And it's like, well, yeah. And those are things to be wise about. But you also can't craft your life around the 0.01% chance of something happening. You can't craft the 99% around the 1%. That's just not how life is, right? In the same way, like I live in Hawaii, there's maybe 10 or 11 shark attacks a year. But if you do the math, 6 million tourists coming in a year, how many times they get in the ocean per year, the locals, like the statistical chance of like actually getting bit by a shark is ridiculously low, way lower than even car crash and some of these other things. And so if I didn't get in the ocean to go swim because a shark attack might happen, that would be ridiculous. I'd be crafting my life around kind of an irrational fear. And so I think sometimes that's the thing that people need to realize is like, oh, you might miss an email, you might miss this, but statistically, like that's not on your side, right? It's on your side to actually understand that, like you'll be okay. You'll survive. You're not that needed. You don't need to talk. You're not that special. Like that's what I tell myself. Like I'm not that awesome. Like people don't need to talk to me or care about me I want to believe in myself, but I'm saying that I'm not. There's something about always feeling needed. Here's what I'm trying to say. That gives us a false sense of like power. And that we're really special. And I think that's where a lot of times we don't want to talk about that part.
Now, you are a guy that in your books, you're very transparent. I understand you had kind of a wake-up call that led you to write this book or was maybe part of the inspiration. Could you share with us about the wake-up call?
Yeah, it was I kind of alluded to it earlier, but basically our marriage just in our life and work and just everything got to the point, nothing so drastic, but a wake-up call point where I was just like, I started getting to the point of like, oh man, there's a lot of tension here and just burnout. Like I'm waking up every day and I'm kind of fried. Our marriage is having a lot of tension because we're arguing about this and commitments and all this stuff. And I realized, man, we were basically living a life that was just responding to everything. Meaning we weren't actually crafting the life we wanted and living intentionally. We were just doing all the things we thought we should be doing. And that's like a very quick recipe for disaster.
How long have you and your wife been married as of the date of this recording?
I think just about 7 years.
And you guys do a little show together sometimes. You're up there on YouTube all the time doing your kind of a vlog together, kind of a podcast together. What's your working relationship with her, and how have you two worked together to hell with the hustle? How have you? Have you guys? Did she first bring up there's a problem? Did you bring it up there's a problem? Did you talk through it together? Talk to me about your working relationship and how you guys each came to this conclusion together.
Yeah, well, I think especially for the married people out there, I think we started to realize, man, like we're not two people going two opposite ways, but the way for this marriage to be the best is when we work as a team. And to work as a team means you really welcome everyone's strengths so that you become a more well-rounded team. And I think a lot of times marriages sometimes will look at each other's opposites and the part that they're maybe, and you say, oh, you're not fast enough for me, or you're not making decisions quick enough for me. And this, but the team part would say, oh yeah, you actually really balance my quickness by being more thoughtful and methodical. We're going to put those together and try to really live in the tension. And so I think, yeah, that's how we kind of have tried to live in this, is by welcoming all the assets about our strengths to help mitigate against our weaknesses. And then what that does is then that allows us to then live intentionally and kind of with a more focus. Because that's really what it comes down to is, again, like I said earlier, a lot of people just aren't living with focus and intentionality. But when you realize that, when you understand that, man, you get to kind of choose the life you want. Now, not like, not in like the pseudo ridiculous self-help way of like, choose this and it'll become true and all that. But no, I'm not saying that. But you get to live every single day with a focus and a mission and a purpose that you kind of can put yourself on. And I think that really, really matters.
Jeff, the other day I was playing basketball with one of my friends, Andy Mathrin. He played Division I basketball at Oral Roberts University, a Christian school in Oklahoma. He was 6'5", big, muscular guy. He's almost, he is 40 now. He's 40 years old, but he's built like Richard Jefferson from the NBA or something. Just jacked, Jeff. And I'm playing that guy to 21 in the pool. We're playing basketball in my swimming pool. We're playing to 21. And you know how it is, Jeff. Whenever you lose, you got to run it back right away. You just got to hurry up and run it back. And I'm just getting destroyed. I'm not getting close. I'm getting destroyed. And I was in that moment, and one of the people at my house said, it was so fun watching you two men who are both in your 40s or almost in your 40s playing basketball, being entirely present, just been fully engrossed in that game, because you don't see that today very much on basketball courts or in backyards. People are constantly looking down at their phone, and I think that's a sad thing. Can you talk to us about the embracing the things that really matter, and maybe if you could define for us what really does matter in life, and then what doesn't matter?
I think you have to just really center relationships. I think a lot of us are looking because work is a lot more, how can I say it? The feedback loop on work is a lot stronger, meaning like we see quickly and we get affirmation quickly based on the results. But relationships are a lot messier like that. The richness and the depth of a relationship is not this feedback loop that hits us every day, but it's more this meaningful kind of like soft touch that builds and is like compound interest as you go forward. And so I would say, yeah, understand that relationships are the most important and kind of center those. And then put things like technology and some of these more kind of noisier things around us on the fringes, because we make technology center, right? And that intimacy really is key, like those relationships of people who actually really know you, who you are, what you're like, how to help you, and living in community. And I think those things are kind of the most important things, and then everything flows really healthily out of that.
What are meaningless tasks in your mind? What are a few meaningless tasks that maybe you go, hey, listen here, you are definitely caught up in the hustle. And you need to say, to hell with the hustle, if this is how you spend your day. Because right now, psychology today is showing that the average American is now spending over 11 hours a day on their smartphone, consuming media or interacting with it. What are a few of the meaningless tasks that you would encourage our listeners to avoid?
I think phone time is a huge one. I think a bunch. I think even work stuff can kind of be like that, even if it seems, even for some other person, it would be really meaningful. It can be really meaningless to you, because I think you have to understand, like, what are you created to do and carved to do? I think anytime you're trying to do something that you think other people want you to do it, but you don't never thought through it on why you should do it, then that's fairly meaningless in my opinion, because that's not a goal or a reason you should live for something in life. And so that's one. I would say, yeah, anytime you're doing something that feels like you're burning out. So if you're ever starting to feel like, man, like kind of where you get to the end of it and you go, what did I just do? Why did I just do that? That's always a really helpful barometer. And then that tends to happen more than we think. And so I'd say that one for sure too.
Did you grow up playing Oregon Trail? Were you old enough to have played Oregon Trail?
Yeah, that's a good game.
Oh, man. And do you define that as a meaningless task if an adult man or woman out here is playing Oregon Trail for 12 hours in a day? What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends, right? Because then if it's that Fortnite guy who just won, $3 million or whatever, then it kind
Oh.
of depends. So I think that's why it's kind of so subjective. But
Okay.
it matters with like focus. Like he clearly, the guy who just won the video game championship for Fortnite, clearly was living he doesn't get there or win that unless he's insanely focused on a vision and a mission. But yeah, most of us, that's pretty meaningless.
Oh, I want to ask you about your personal schedule now. Now that you, you're best-selling author. You have a ton of social media impact there. Many people, I think for you, you don't care about as many followers as you care about how many people you're impacting, how many people you're helping, but you're making an impact. What does your schedule now look like today, Mr. Jefferson Bethke? Do you wake up at, 1 a.m. and do you just grind until midnight every night? Do you go to bed at 9 p.m.? What does your schedule look like?
Yeah. My schedule is a little unique. And so for me, because I'm self-employed, I try to really shape it around and we have little kids. I try to shape it around kind of centering the kids and how most we can kind of make sure to get the most amount of time with them. And so, yeah, I wake up pretty early. I wake up 4 a.m. probably half the week and 5 a.m. the other half of the week. But I also am not a guy who thinks like, burn the candle at both ends and all that. I go to bed at 8 or 9 p.m.
Oh,
So
come on. Preach it. That's hot. You go to bed at what time?
Like I would say probably half the week I probably go to bed at 8, and if I stay up late, I go to bed at like 9:15.
Oh, Shonda,
which is funny because that's only like an hour and a half past my kids, but that just works for us. Like because I'm intentionally trying to craft a life around what I'm trying to accomplish, and so then I've had to actually manipulate sleep, not manipulate it in the sense of like cheat it, but like, hey, I need 8 hours to function really well and healthily. Let's bump these 8 hours a little earlier. And so because I work really, really good early in the morning, the kids aren't up yet early in the morning. Nothing good really happens at 10 or 11 p.m. or productive for me. So I just said, why would I not, want to kind of back this all up? And so, yeah, so I'll wake up really early and I'll kind of work in a couple blocks. I'll usually this book was all written probably from 4 to 8 a.m. To hell with the hustle. And most of them are. And then I'll kind of hang out with the family, have breakfast, chill, take a little break. And then I'll kind of maybe work a little bit more when they go down for a nap in the middle of the day. And then and so I'm still working probably 8-9 hours a day, but in kind of 2 or 3 blocks spread throughout the day. And then the kids go down early at 6:30, which is pretty early even for most kids, but again, we're crafting our family around what we want to accomplish. And then I'll hang out with my wife and make sure we get some time together for an hour or two at night. And that's been intentional because it kind of is taking us where we want to go, if that makes sense.
So do you work from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. or what are you doing from 4 a.m. to 8?
Yeah, that's probably my most strongest work. I'm usually writing, doing any type of content creation. Because again, for me, I've been I try to be sensitive to learning myself. And I've learned that like I don't write or I don't produce anything very well like past 10, 11 a.m. I start kind of having this fade. And so that's a really good time for like emails and administrative work, right? Or planning or whatever. But the actual like writing, the real hard like kind of stuff you need to really be all in for, I'm most laser focused the earlier I get up.
And do you work out of your house right now in Hawaii?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you have a view that looks out over palm trees, or do you decide to adjust your view so that you're looking over like a dumpster? Or tell us the view. I mean, what do you like to look at? Is it a dumpster? Is it palm trees? Is it ocean? What are you looking at?
Yeah, well, I'm in my office right now doing this podcast, and yeah, it's our front. I look out towards our front yard, and so I see a bunch of our neighbors and houses. But yeah, it's mostly palm trees in everyone's yard.
Okay. Final questions for you. Idiosyncrasies. I'll tell you this. One, you're an eccentrically just beautiful man. I don't know if you're doing a lot of coconut oil up there in Hawaii, if you're doing a lot of fish oil, what's going on? But you're a handsome guy. Your wife appears to be unable to see you, though. She's an attractive lady. You're a handsome guy. You got a great family, beautiful family. Things are well. You smile a lot on camera. There's just so many things that are weird about you. But what idiosyncrasy do you feel that makes you successful?
Well, we actually kind of already mentioned. I was gonna say, yeah, did I go to bed really early and get up really early, and not from the methodology of the people who say like, burn the candle at both ends. That actually bothers me when the people say like, stay up late or get up early and grind. And I'm like, no, I'm like, you can't function well without 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Like that's been proven and that's been shown. And so I think that's actually where I'm very idiosyncratic, because I believe the more sleep I get and the more rest I get, then more productive I can actually be at work. And yeah, I mean, who else, what other 29, 30-year-old goes to bed at, 8 p.m.? That was probably my idiosyncraticness.
Now, okay. Does your wife work with you on the day-to-day in the business, or do you have
not
your
day-to-day, but yeah, she'll hop in and contribute, and we kind of do it as a team, but I definitely take more of the lion's share of the day-to-day workload part of it.
Okay, final 2 questions for you. Somebody out there is contemplating buying your book. They're going, gosh, I got a little bit of carpal tunnel, and I could go to Amazon and click the button, and I could do it. I could buy To Hell with the Hustle, Reclaiming Your Life in an Overworked, Overspent, and Overconnected World. Or I could spend $23 on cheese. I'm going to the grocery store. I could just buy some cheese and get some good cheese and some expensive cheese. Why should somebody buy your book over some expensive cheese?
Well, it depends on the cheese, because honestly, if it was, I love cheese, and if it's a really good cheese, I would get the cheese instead of the book. But if it's not the best of the best of the best, then maybe the book can kind of be a better impact. What I would say is, I just think I'm really excited about the book, and I'm excited about the conversation it's starting and creating, and I do think it's a little singular and unique in that I'm trying to kind of blow the whistle and kind of say, hey, let's stop, let's pay attention, let's think about this more than most other books I'm seeing right now, and most other books are doing the opposite. And so I think, if you want a book that's not kind of that you're not hearing similar tones from in a lot of other books out right now, then I would love to have them check it out, and then also let me know on social media too. I'm active. I'd love to hear, kind of have a two-way conversation there about it.
Do you have a favorite kind of cheese?
I'm a pretty big cheese lover in general. So any type of the nicer cheeses that can go on like a charcuterie board. I obviously love the, I do pizzas with like gorgonzola and blue cheese and feta and goat cheese and all those. So that's anything really.
Well, I know on Amazon, when someone buys your book on Amazon, the profits are a lot less than if they buy them direct from you. If somebody, buys the book direct from you, for $50, will you throw in some Gouda cheese?
If it maybe shipped well from Maui, I would, but I probably would melt and not turn out so good once it gets there.
Okay. Final question for you. We got about 500,000 folks that listen to this podcast each and every month, many of which are self-employed or want to be. As it relates to your new book or not, it's the floor is yours. What is one message you want to share or a word of encouragement? What's something you'd like to say to all the listeners today who've taken time out of their schedule to invest in listening to this show?
Yeah. Well, I would say kind of the heart of the book, and that's actually be encouraged. Don't feel like you hear a bunch of like, I got to stop this and stop that. Hear actually the encouragement that when you actually live a really methodical, slower life, it leads to a deeper, richer, more meaningful life. And that's counterintuitive to our culture. But when you start stepping into that, the fruit starts showing. And so I would just tell them to be encouraged with that and understand that, even though maybe people around them don't understand it or don't get it.
Jeff, I appreciate you being with us on the show. I appreciate you for opening up about your knowledge of cheese. And I hope to do interview part 3 where we can really get into the deep dive of you making pizzas at home, how you your wife and kids manage the kiddos, life in Hawaii. And I love having you on the show. You have such great energy. Thank you for all the content that you're putting out there.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
All right, you take care. And now, without any further ado, 3,